I'm a founder of BareSkin-Beauty. This is my business. I created it from the ground up, and my passion is natural skin and reducing the signs of aging all through natural means, through foods, through lifestyle, through diet. And today I want to try and share those areas of my expertise that I'd like you to take home and try yourself, that are simple, practical and available and not too expensive. If I can just introduce Krish, she is part of our small but perfectly formed team at BareSkin-Beauty, and she'll explain what she does.
So my name's Krishna. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the bioscience engineering field at the University of Cambridge at the moment. Now, I during my daytime when I'm not standing here talking to you guys, I look at the transfer of materials across cell membranes. And so as a result of that, my passion really is in nutrition, because I want to look at things and how they get across layers, how we get nutrition in our diet, how we get everything across systems. So this is one of my passions, and the other one actually really is to get scientific knowledge out to the general public so they understand what the gibberish our scientists sit and talk, because we spend most of our lives behind glass doors. And I really want you guys to understand that, and that's why I'm here with Juliette, to try and actually push across the understanding of nutrition and how that actually works in our day-to-day lives as well.
BareSkin-Beauty is founded upon the principle of skin food, which is the subject of our talk. And this is basically my ethos and ideology that's talking about foods and how they can feed the skin, but also in terms of the ingredients within the products, that if they are high in enzymes, antioxidants, vitamins and minerals, they are feeding the skin from the outside in. Now, why is any of this important? Why should you care? Why does it matter what skincare brand you use? Why does it matter what you apply to your skin? Well, it matters because what you apply to your skin goes into your body immediately. Everything that you apply to your skin is within your body and floating around it within 15 minutes. So if it's wholesome and it's pure, fantastic. Then those nutrients and vitamins are floating around the body, they're getting into the bloodstream, they're ending up in parts of the body that you may not even consider, like the bones. They go as deep as the bones in the skeletal structure. If you're putting something onto your skin that is less than pure, then that too is filtering around your body. And as women, we're busy, we don't give this a great deal of thought, but I started to give this a great deal of thought 10 years ago. And I actually gave up a career in law to found my company, and I never intended to set this business up. It basically grew organically, excuse the pun, and through my friends wanting and forcing me to go down this path, because I created these products and this ethos because I couldn't find anything on the market that didn't damage my skin. And when I came to the conclusion that I was paying companies a premium in order to damage my skin, I thought, well, this is not right, and I want to know that the foods I'm eating are pure, so why do I not go to the trouble of making sure that what I'm applying onto my skin is also pure? Otherwise, it seems a complete contradiction in terms that I'm taking the trouble to eat healthy foods and to pursue a healthy lifestyle, and then destroying all of that by placing toxic compounds onto my skin. I personally passionately believe that toxins are the 21st century reason behind nearly all degenerative diseases, and I believe that if we can just reduce our toxic burden through any means possible, then we can dramatically increase our health and our overall well-being. You're all here today because you want to learn more about vitality, you want to learn more about health and well-being, but I'm also fully aware that you want to learn ways that are practical, not time-consuming, and especially not prohibitively expensive. Chris is now going to talk to you a little bit about the science, because I'm very aware that it's fairly befuddling.
So, the skin, right? We all have some. It's all around us, and it's actually one of the largest organs in our body, okay? But it is ridiculously complicated, all right? This makes me really excited. This clearly doesn't make you guys excited, because it's gibberish and it doesn't make any sense. Now, it's the largest organ in our body. It actually makes up about 16% of our body weight. 16%, all right? And it also has a surface area of approximately, depending on how tall and how small you are, it does vary a little bit, but about 2 square meters. That's a huge surface area when you think about it. Now, it does a whole host of things. It controls the temperature of our body. It is a barrier to the external environment. It controls how water goes across our system. It also maintains electrolytes, nutrients, and provides natural protection against the outside world. It is our first barrier. It is our first and simplest immune system. Okay? Now, that's not that interesting because it's just all complicated. Simple structure of the skin. I've just taken all the kind of extraneous bits that you don't really need to know about. Now the outer layer, the stratum corneum, now that is actually the surface layer we see, okay? That is actually slowly dying cells coming up to the surface, alright? But that is our natural protective layer. Now it serves as a physical and a chemical barrier, so when you actually burn yourself or hurt yourself, that's the layer you're hurting, okay? This is where the difference between first degree, second degree, third degree burns happen. How far deep have you burnt yourself? How far deep have you gone? Now the dermis, which is a central layer, is really where your blood supply comes through. It's where all the nutrients sit. And then right underneath you have the hypodermis. Now the hypodermis is actually a very healthy layer of fat. Alright, it is where our immune system actually starts functioning. It is why when you get a cut, when you get a graze, you can get little red inflammation bits. That's because in your little fatty layer here are your white blood cells. They notice that there's something else that's come into your body and it doesn't like it. And it starts to attack and it starts to work. And that's how it does what it does. Now, skin, as we all know, is quite dynamic, right? We all have skin, but all of our skin is slightly different. And our skin is different on every part of our body. In some areas it's thicker, in some areas it's thinner, in some areas it's more supple, in some areas it's more sensitive to external influences. And it all depends on a number of things. What do we do to our skin? How is it affected day to day? It changes based on what we expose it to, what damage we do to it. Okay? Now, cells also, our skin is constantly changing. It's always replacing itself. It has a turnover cycle, right? So you brush yourself off, you exfoliate, and your skin starts falling off. That's the dead cells coming in. Now the dead cells come off, and you get new fresh cells. And now fresh cells don't just recreate themselves over here. What's actually happening is that these cells are moving upwards. They're coming up. So you're actually creating new cells from cells that are already there. You have an upward movement. And in the same way that you have an upward movement, you have a downward movement going on. Because everything that goes up, something's got to come back into it to replace what's going on. And that's where you have the nutrition that goes in. So let me give you a few interesting facts about our skin, okay? Now, it's naturally an acidic surface, not what people think. It's not neutral. You have all these wonderful things that they have in the market that says, oh, get it back to pH 7, that neutral acidity. It's not true. Our skin is actually naturally acidic. It's why when you wash your face with soap, you kind of have that dry feeling because soap's alkaline and it's just neutralizing the natural acids in your skin. People with sensitive skin, their skin isn't too dry. Their skin is actually too acidic. So when you buy products off a shelf that says for sensitive skin, it has more water in it. It has more alkali products in it to bring it down, bring the acidity down. Okay? And that's really what you're buying and what you're buying on the shelves. Now the thing that really gets me excited about skin is the fact that whatever we put onto our skin surface goes straight into our bodies. Juliette alluded to this earlier. Within 15 minutes, things go across our skin into our bloodstream. Why? Within a couple of layers, there's your blood supply. That's why there's this tiniest little graze on your skin and you bleed. So it's a very thin layer it has to go through. So there's not much time that needs to be passed. Now think about this. When you have a nicotine patch, how else does nicotine patches work? They go through your skin into your bloodstream, curbing your need for nicotine. So in the same way, anything else we put on our skin surface goes straight into our bloodstream. It's even more effective than us eating things. And the simple principle that our digestive system is made chock full of all sorts of things to actually slow down how we absorb things. We've got to go through the stomach acids, we've got to go through the bile acids before it actually gets into our bloodstream. Because the idea of the digestive system is to break down what we're taking in. If we manage to produce nutrients in a manner in which that our skin can absorb it, so the type of material we put it in, usually in an oil or a liquid form, it goes straight through your skin. And so it's really important that what we put on our skin is actually thought through, not just putting anything over. I was actually last week working with a group of archaeologists who they were telling me how they can do simple bone scrapings and actually tell you all the series of chemicals you've put on your system during your lifespan. It's quite worrying. It's the fact that something you've put on your skin today, in 20 years' time when you're dead, someone can tell you what you put on your skin because the chemicals sit on your bones. It's not something you really think about, and it's not something you consider, but this is why it's so important that you think about what you put on the surface of your skin.
On from the point Chris has made about what goes into our bodies, it's worthwhile considering that at the present time we have 100,000 chemicals currently in use in the cosmetics market. Now, probably none of you realise that only 13% of these have ever been tested for efficacy and safety. The other major problem that I have with this is the idea of the cumulative effect. For example, scientifically, there is no tests or data required by cosmetics companies to say how one ingredient, for example, in the morning, you brush your teeth, you then use a moisturiser. No one knows how that toothpaste will combine with the moisturiser in terms of how it will affect the body, how those chemicals are going to crash into each other, what they're going to do, and the new chemicals that they will then create by virtue of fusing together within the body. I never wanted to be a walking science experiment, and much like cooking, I knew that if I cooked it myself, I knew what was in it. That's how BareSkin-Beauty got started. We are exposed as women with the routines that we have with the skincare and the topical preparations that we use and are constantly being encouraged to use more. We're exposed to over 126 chemicals per day. That is frightening data if you consider how many chemicals we're getting from the air, the water, our work environments, even being in this air. I mean, this air is so dry it makes me feel like I'm choking up because it's just not natural. It's being done through means other than what is actually working in synergy with our body and our respiratory systems. The most important thing to remember is the human body is so complex, as Chris has explained in relation to the skin, but the whole body is complex and it totally and utterly rejects synthetic compounds. There's just no point putting them on your skin because they don't do anything beneficial because the body doesn't recognize them. It works with ingredients it recognizes. This is why we work with cold-pressed oils, plant fats, anything that is 100% natural, and the whole plant. We don't use extracts. We don't believe in extracting supposedly the best bit, the most effective bit, the anti-aging bit. That's not how nature works. We need whole foods, just like fruit juices are not good for you. You need the juice with the fibre, you need the whole fruit. So we shouldn't just pick and choose, we need to work with the whole plant. Another important point is if our bodies are receiving toxins from many, many sources, then they're going to be working so hard to try and get rid of those toxins. So our organs of elimination, the skin, the liver, the pancreas, are all working, the lungs are all working under huge amounts of pressure when in fact we don't want them to be focusing on that. We want them to be working, just keeping us alive, keeping us upright, keeping us breathing, keeping us functional, keeping us healthy and not sick. So detoxing, having to detox these compounds from the body not only puts a pressure on the body, but it also is incredibly energy intensive, will make you tired, and it's diverting valuable resources in the body that should be used for other things. Chris is now going to go on to talk about free radicals. Now, the reason we've included this as part of the talk is that I'm very aware from speaking to clients on a daily basis that most people don't understand what the main cause of aging actually is. What it is, what they are, what they look like, and more importantly, how we can neutralise and reduce the damage that they cause.
Alright, so I step back in, do my little science part. So, free radicals. You've heard about them, right? Everyone heard about them? Alright, here's a question. Who can tell me what a free radical actually is? You all know they're bad for you, right? You all know that things can be done to protect you from them. What are you protecting yourself from? What's a free radical? The sun is not a free radical. The sun creates the free radicals, but what is that one thing we're all putting on our skin to protect ourselves from? Exactly. Yes, it's a particle with an unpaired free electron. Ta-da! Alright, let me put it in a simpler way of understanding it. It's basically a particle. It's a robber. Alright? right? It has missing energy. It's sort of missing its morning cup of coffee. So rather than going to the coffee shop and getting a cup of coffee, the next person that walks past, I'll just have that, thank you very much. And then that person is missing their coffee. So it goes past the next person and grabs the next person's cup of coffee. And as a result, you end up with a horrendous cascade effect. Now, before I actually explain how the free radicals work and what causes them, how many free radicals do you think you have floating around your body? Just now. Millions. Tens of millions to hundreds of millions to 1,000 millions, depending on what you've been eating recently. Okay? Tens of millions of free radicals floating around. So, how do they actually work? Now, free radicals basically are unpaired electrons, as the lovely lady in the corner over there said. They're unpaired electrons because sometimes when oxygen, which we have lots of in our body because it's kind of very helpful, oxygen reacts with certain chemicals in our body and creates these free radicals. It takes these extra electrons and creates these unpaired forms. Now, once they've actually been formed, these free radicals have a chain reaction. Like I was explaining earlier with a cup of coffee, they then react one after another and keep going. Sort of a bit of a domino effect. Now, that domino effect in itself isn't actually all that bad. However, the chief danger really comes from the damage they can do when they interact with very important materials in our body. So when they interact with things like the membranes of the cell, the DNA within the cell, and sort of other components within the cell that rely on cell function, then they actually cause damage because what happens is then it kills the cell. You're actually damaging the surface of the cell and it can no longer function in its ability. Now, there are several enzyme systems within our body that actually scavenge these free electrons. They actually work on trying to stop the free electrons from doing their damage on the very important parts of our body. Now, they work using micronutrients. Now, micronutrients are things that our body cannot produce and we actually have to ingest in our diets. They're known as, anybody want to answer this one? Antioxidants. Right? Now, antioxidants safely interact with free radicals to neutralize them, to stop them from actually doing the surface damage that they do. Now, why does all this really excite me? Remember I told you I work on things going across surfaces? Well, I look at the phospholipid bilayer. Now, the phospholipid bilayer, I'm just going to bore you for about 2 minutes just because this is really exciting for me. This is a cell, complicated, horrible stuff. I look at this thin little layer on the outside of the cell, known as the cell membrane. Now, the cell membrane is a horrible, complex structure. It is made specifically of what is called the phospholipid bilayer, which are these things. And then it has lots of little transform materials so you can actually get nutrients to transfer across. And that's really where the free radicals attack and destroy. It's not really good when that happens. But I look at modelling the fluidity, how that phospholipid bilayer moves, how things go across when they are damaged and when they're not damaged, how all this changes, how that structure within our cell actually works. So I'll go back to Juliette, who's going to tell you more about antioxidants, the nice exciting things that protect you from said free radicals.
How many people know the rationale behind the government's 5-a-day campaign? Does anyone know why this got started in the first place? No, I suspected this would be the case. People don't really understand a lot of the reasons behind the government campaigns. They do have a good idea at their heart, but they're not very good at explaining themselves. The 5-a-day campaign was set up to try and encourage people to incorporate antioxidants into their daily lives in the forms of fruit and vegetables. But for me, it's missing one key factor. In fact, 2 key factors. One, we need about 8 fruit and vegetables a day. Most people will think, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to sit and eat raw fruit constantly. Well, you can juice it. You can have it in smoothies. There are ways to get, and that's what I personally do, fruit and vegetables into your life. But the most important factor for me is that it must be organic. The reason for this is that You do not want to be eating beautiful fruit and vegetables and taking the trouble to do this if they are then covered in polymers, which are effectively plastics, so you can't wash them off, and herbicides and pesticides. So organic may be more expensive, it may be more difficult to get hold of, but it's certainly worth it if you are keen to improve the condition of your skin and also to improve your overall health and vitality. My advice is to find a community box scheme that's near you. Even in London, we have them all over the place. Allotments, people need to sell to keep their allotments going, and so you can often get some wonderful produce this way. There are very many websites that are offering this. The great thing about box schemes is that they are not that expensive, and they're also seasonal. Another point I believe very strongly in is that we should eat in accordance with our own body's biochemistry. So we should not, as Brits, be importing papaya from South America because we don't eat it as part of our staple. You know, we're Vikings at our very core. We should be eating things that come out the ground in this country, and we shouldn't, I'm not saying we shouldn't have things from other countries, but that shouldn't be the staple. So a box scheme is fantastic because it will give you what's in season at that time. So the organic point is really, really important, because if you eat your 5 a day, which I know is hard work, you will be eating up to 14 different herbicides and pesticides if it's non-organic. So it's something really to bear in mind. There's just no point in eating fruit that's covered in rubbish that you don't know what it is.